Bob was a pioneer who took all the abuse for a lot of years.
I am concerned about the American
Matheo.
Heart Association's recommendations of Fruit Loops and Pop-Tarts having their seal of approval.
His name gives many of us chills.
A lot of people saw him as a quack.
Well, I don't know where fruit got such a great reputation, frankly.
He had this burning desire to change the way the world eats, but particularly America eats.
Now on Biography, Dr. Robert Atkins. We are a supersized country obsessed with dieting. We scrutinize the diets celebrities swear by. Will Renee Zellweger's post-Bridget Jones diet work for us? Or perhaps Oprah's regimen holds the key to our success? The list of diets is endless.
Atkins, South Beach, Scarsdale, cabbage soup, pineapple, the Paracone Promise, the Pritikin diet. I shouldn't keep going, should I?
And we embark on eating plans that to an alien eye might seem a bit, well, kooky. The grapefruit diet, the cabbage diet, even the blood type diet.
A friend of mine, he actually just ate like chicken and drank water. That's all he did. I don't know why.
She ate tuna fish for breakfast, lunch, dinner, until one day she dreamed she was a tuna fish, and she quit.
We spend $30 billion a year on diet products, ranging from pills to bars to shakes.
I've tried low-carb bread, not for diet purposes, just to try it. It was awful.
Yeah, I think I ate some diet cookies one time. Well, it was just like no taste, just nothing.
Oh, and the power bars. Oh, God, power bars is like chewing on some bark.
But there is only one diet that has managed to become a part of our language, a catchphrase for all low-carb plans. The Atkins diet. And everyone has an opinion about it.
It sounds a bit mad to me. I tried it and I lost 13 pounds in my first 3 weeks.
I know people have lost weight on that, but I don't believe in it.
Here is a diet that goes against all conventional nutrition advice, banning bread, potatoes, and pasta in favor of red meat, eggs, and bacon. What's not to love? In a world where it seems every month brings a new diet fad, the Atkins plan has been one of the most controversial since it was first introduced in 1972. No surprise, many doctors have big problems with both Atkins and his diet.
He was abused, he was vilified. He was like a lightning rod. Everything was heaped on him.
His name, I think, gives many of us chills. I mean, like, oh, Atkins. We don't respect him as a scientist. We, in fact, kind of bothers us that he would put out this type of diet without any research.
This is why I sort of resent the idea that people are saying that my diet is not heart healthy. If it were not heart healthy, we wouldn't be reversing heart disease and getting these people who were having chest pain on a little bit of exertion out there running and jogging a few months later.
I've seen a few subjects in science be treated like this one is, and that it's really treated like religion and politics. People have extreme views on both sides.
Then, in 2003, a bomb dropped on the nutrition world. Several short-term studies suggested that the Atkins diet might not be so bad after all.
I, like a lot of people, were surprised by the findings. Here, again, how could a diet that's high in saturated fat actually improve your cholesterol?
But skeptics said, not so fast.
We don't know if people stay on an Atkins-type diet for a long term, what's going to happen to their lipid profile, what's going to happen to their bones, what's going to happen in terms of cancer. We don't know that. No one knows that. That's never been done.
Just explain to me how a diet virtually eliminating fruit is going to be good for you and safe.
Well, I don't know where fruit got such a great reputation, frankly. Vegetables, yes. But people must not link fruits and vegetables in the same category. Vegetables are far more healthy than fruit.
Still, despite all the criticism, it seems that most of us have done Atkins at one time or another.
2 carbs.
But who exactly is the doctor who started this controversial diet? Well, Dr. Robert Atkins was at heart a guy who loved food.
My love of food. I made that diet taste so good, so delicious, because I still love food.
Atkins the man and Atkins the doctor were almost inseparable. he channeled all his energies into his work, seeing patients and spreading the word about his unorthodox diet.
You definitely need to stay on a low-carbohydrate diet just to handle your triglyceride.
At times, he was so focused he could come off as rude.
No, read the part of the book where it tells you what to eat.
When I first met him, I was a little intimidated, but when you get past that first impression, underneath that bully-type personality was this teddy bear that had a true passion for helping people.
In fact, he created the diet for himself when, as a young cardiologist, he noticed one too many chins in the mirror.
And I had not seen him for a half a year, at least. He must have put on 40 pounds, 30 pounds, I don't know what. And I see him coming toward me at the airport, and I start screaming.
So Atkins went in search of a diet that a man with an appetite could live with. He found one in a medical journal.
Just before I went on the diet, there was a nice article about a low-carbohydrate diet that allowed you to eat as much as you want. Another article describing the similarity between carbohydrate restriction and fasting, meaning that if you restrict carbohydrates, you're not hungry. And that was for me because I was too hungry to follow a low-calorie diet.
Now, Dr. Atkins threw out the bread and donuts and stocked his refrigerator with shrimp.
And what he called a shrimp diet. He was eating shrimp all day. And he came home 26 pounds lighter.
The fact that he did struggle with problems with his weight was really good because he understood what the patients were going through.
And it worked for me, and then I tried it on 65 people at AT&T, in my first study group. All 65 got to their goal. I knew I had something that was very real and that should be mainstream.
The low-carbohydrate approach to dieting had been kicking around the medical world for over 100 years, but it took Atkins to make it a hit. He began putting more patients on a low-carb regimen, and when the high-fashion magazine Vogue published an article about it, socialites began beating a well-heeled path to his door.
He was, of course, the diet doctor to the chic and well-known at that time, and everybody was flocking to his offices.
Because the word spread that he had this revolutionary new diet where you can eat, not be hungry, and lose a lot of weight.
One of the reasons that people were so fascinated by it was because it told you to eat everything that your whole life you were told you couldn't eat on a diet. So you had mayonnaise, bacon, unbelievable.
Here's the basic plan Atkins came up with. For the first week or so, dieters severely limit carbohydrates to promote quick weight loss. Foods like meat, cheese, and salad greens are allowed. Then carbs are added back into the diet in small doses, a piece of fruit here, some broccoli there, until the critical carbohydrate level is reached. That is, the level at which you start gaining weight again.
Oh yes, and it's worked. You have to be very diligent at really keeping the carbs off. And what I found is when I didn't have any carbs, I didn't have that much hunger. And I lost inches, I lost weight, I had more energy, but that was just me. I think it's more a personal thing.
Of course, as with every diet, once a dieter strays from the plan, the pounds come back, often with interest.
It was okay while you were eating the food, but once you were able to eat carbs again, you just go nuts.
Great success and then failure. So I lost a lot of weight, but then I gained it back, because I just couldn't live on cheese and bacon and eggs. It was very hard. Chocolate is not part of the Atkins diet, and that was my downfall.
Patients of Dr. Atkins felt the doctor's wrath when they cheated on his diet.
And he was berating this woman. And you cheated, you took a diet pill, and you cheated on the diet, and you cheated on yourself, and you cheated on me, and the whole thing. And then this gorgeous model-like woman walks out of the office and walking by me, and I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to me in there?
But beneath the yelling was simply a doctor trying to help his patients.
He said, well, I used to be nice and everybody came back fat. So he said, I stopped. I decided that I had to yell at people and put the fear of Atkins in them.
With requests for copies of his diet flooding in, Atkins decided to publish it in book form. Dr. Atkins' Diet Revolution hit the stores in 1972. Apparently, people were hungry for a diet that allowed steak and eggs. The Diet Revolution sold over 10 million copies and remains one of the 50 best-selling books of all time.
Bob was never one who wanted to be hungry. He actually told me once he never had a hunger pain in his life because when he thought he might get hungry, he would have a snack.
On the Atkins diet, a snack could mean fried pork rinds, deviled eggs, or beef jerky. And this is what horrified other doctors.
I remember the diet from even like when I was young, the Atkins diet, you know, what, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the diet was popular, and it was like quackery. There was no research to support it. It was a fad diet.
There were some editorials that were published that sort of labeled him as a quack and somebody who was just all about getting the money. That certainly was the characterization of him in the early 70s. Part of the ill feelings about Dr. Atkins from the medical establishment were that he was saying things that were contrary to accepted knowledge. For example, that you could eat all the calories you wanted as long as they were low carb, that you actually should be encouraged to eat things like pork rinds and bacon. I think that's really the reason that people were so emotional and I think actually vitriolic against him in the very beginning.
But Atkins' office full of success stories told him he was on the right track.
Sure, I knew I was right all along, because by the time I wrote the first book, I had already treated 10,000 patients, and they had done so well.
With the publication of his book, Dr. Robert Atkins was now New York's premier diet doctor, and he loved being in the spotlight. He was, after all, a man who had once dreamed of being a stand-up comedian.
He couldn't just afford to go to medical school like many people could, and he needed to do something, and he had this phenomenal sense of humor, so he worked his way through medical school doing stand-up comedy.
On Saturday nights, he uses stand-up comic talents. After he finishes, a man comes up to him and says, "I'm Sid Caesar's agent." He says, "Kid, you're better. You're more talented than he is. What are you going to do when you finish here?" He says, "I'm going to medical school." He says, "Go to medical school." That was the end of his stand-up comedy career.
He had these chairs which were small, and his patients, he knew, were overweight. So the chairs had straight sides, so patients would get stuck in them. So I sat down, and the chair was very tight around me, and right in front of me was this huge Buddha. And between knowing that I was in a chair that was too small and seeing this huge Buddha in front of me, I felt an instant connection with him.
Dr. Atkins enjoyed every moment of his new and lucrative life as best-selling author and premier diet doctor.
He loved all parts of Europe, and he would go off at any time. And he was just a player. He had a delightful life. He was passionate about everything. Life was just a place to play.
Well, he did have a passion for ballerina-type women. He wasn't a womanizer as much as he appreciated the beauty of a dancer.
He liked very exotic women. They had to have different things, or we'd get bored easily. And they had to be sufficiently different from him that they kept his interest, because he was just so brilliant. He was a very brilliant man.
I nicknamed him the genius because he was so smart and so passionate about his career. And despite what people may think, he was not money motivated. He never cared about money. In fact, if you asked him, how he was doing or how much he was making or any of the financial questions, he would never even know.